Welcome, everybody. This is Hugh Massie, the chairman and founder of DNA Behaviour International. And today I'm delighted to be hosting another identity conversation. And I have the great fortune to have with me Akeela Davis, who is the CEO and founder of Courageous Business Culture. And Akeela is based in Vancouver, Canada. And I remember going to meet Akeela for the very first time 15 years ago at her office there in Vancouver when she was with TD Wealth and was a wealth manager. And ever since we've had a great dialogue. And Akeela's got a very interesting life background. So welcome, Akeela.
Thank you, Hugh. I appreciate being on your conversation.
So Akeela, why don't you just help us get started by telling me a little bit more about your life and career background, because it is very interesting and many have not had the fortune to do what you've done.
Well, thank you very much. And parts of it demonstrates, I think, what a lot of people go through. I graduated school as basically a software engineer, university. And it was not because it was a career I had planned. I fell into it because my husband was in computers. And in second year, I started out in science and engineering. And my husband was in computers and we got married in second year. So I switched my major so I could understand his language. At that time, it was a different language. And so I took an aptitude test. I was good at it. I learned it. I enjoyed the analysis and the coming up with new ways of doing things, the solutions. And that was great for about 12 years. And then I know this is going to sound odd, but I got lucky. I got diagnosed with an illness that they told me I would probably die. And nothing makes you take a good look at your life. And I found that just because I was good at working with computers didn't mean that I felt a sense of purpose. And I needed that sense of purpose. I needed to know that what I was doing was making a difference in people's lives. So I turned to the thing that I had always enjoyed doing as a hobby, which was about money, finances. And I thought, okay, this is something that impacts people on every level of their lives. So by doing this, I will be able to help people. And I became a financial advisor. I took all my certifications and did that for 17 years. And I was right. It did help. I felt good about what I was doing. But in that journey, I realized something else. I realized that there was an even bigger problem that people needed to deal with. And that was how they earned their income, where they got their money for their wealth. Because, if somebody is coming to you about their finances and it's 5 years before retirement and they are crossing off each day on their calendar, there is something very, very, very wrong with that. Because the way I look at it, we are exchanging our life's energy when we work, and doing it just for a paycheck just isn't good enough. So many people go home stressed. They go home and it creates an atmosphere in their home which is not healthy. They bring home their stress and they create more stress. So I decided that is something I wanted to do. And it took me many years to figure out what I needed. I took more courses, more studies. And now finally, I'm at a place where I've got the tools and the knowledge, and I've got a program put together that is going to give me the ability to help people at work, help them to be more satisfied with their work, more fulfilled, more engaged. And it would also help employers because higher productivity means higher profits and just a happier workplace. So it's a win-win. I call it mutualism, economic mutualism.
Well, that's a wonderful expression, economic mutualism. I've never heard that.
I created it.
but again, that's a great expression, because I think for so many people, they are in their life out of sync energetically between, money and what they're doing, and the energy forces that are within them.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are out of sync. And I think if I heard what you're saying is, if you're out there earning money the wrong way, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's in an unethical way, but if it's not aligned to who you are.
Yes, you heard that correctly. If it's not aligned to who you are, it's difficult, and there's dissonance there in your life.
And this is where understanding your relationship to money, what it is in your life,
yes,
is so important. And I'm sensing that's what drove you from being a computer software engineer across to wealth management.
Absolutely, because I had all the security I could want, making great income, but there was no purpose there. It was not, that question, when you died, what would somebody say about you? And writing great computer programs was not what I wanted them to say.
And in a way, I suppose that lack of purpose,
mm-hmm.
deeper down purpose in the computer software life that you had at the start of your career, the first 12 years or so, also perhaps caused some stress.
Oh, heavens, yes. And I put that down for why I was diagnosed with that illness, because 7 years after, I got checked out totally by my doctor, and what I had was incurable, except that there was no sign of it anymore in my body when I was doing what I loved and what I enjoyed.
Well, we could talk another day about that, but there's a big, and I think this is a big message for the people listening to this conversation today. It's about changing your environment, and if you're prepared to change your mindset and you've got the courage to do that, and that's why I love the fact that you've got courage in your business name.
Thank you.
That you've got the courage to change your mindset, and then with that, the environment you're in, a lot of good things can happen.
Yes.
But you've got to be able to reconcile your relationship to money when you do that as part of the process, which is why I love the economic mutualism. I think you really should trademark that term.
Thank you. I think I will.
Go and put at least a TM on it, because I think it's a fantastic term, and to build a lot more on the economic mutualism.
Yeah. Okay, I will take your advice and get that done, because I love that term too.
So now that you've had this great transition in your life and career, and I know that you've been married the whole time, and that's another whole dimension of your work, which is also something that's special to stay married through lots of stressful events. I think that's a testament to you and being a devoted wife and partner and mother. Yeah. Well, it does take two, and both have got to be flexible. But I think that's important. But just driving more into what you're doing now with courageous business culture, this term culture renovation specialist, which I like as well. So you've got some great terms there. How are you driving this economic mutualism message through harder now in your work?
Well, I had brought motivation to the forefront, because that's one thing. There wasn't anything for people to understand what motivates people. Even people don't understand what motivates them.
Yeah.
Less than half of the people can actually identify, given a set of 9 motivators, they can't identify which ones is their top or bottom. So it's a language that allows people to understand themselves. As I said, to me, it's the gateway to self-awareness. And now that we've brought DNA behavior into our company, the two of them, I think, are going to be so powerful. Not I think, I know they're going to be so powerful, because we're talking about strengths, we're talking about behaviors. and we're talking about motivation. Yeah. And if we can put all three of those, help people understand it, and not just their behavior at work, but as you said, their financial behavior, which is a huge part of every one of us, our lives, the awareness of it, and put that package together, and I'd say we're unbeatable.
You will be unbeatable, and I agree. You know, in the way I piece that together, you know, I think again, if you do understand the behavioral talents,
yes,
and with that, what motivates you, some of that comes from the talents or can be seen from the talents, but there's also your life experiences and you know, belief systems that are there as well. But how that is reflected in money is very important because this part of your life, it travels together, and the financial decisions that you make reflect your behavior and motivations, but also your behavior and motivations drive the financial choices that you make. You know, it's inescapable, and this is why, you know, I'm putting out there a lot more, Akeela, that money is as big an energy force in your life as food. And it's got to be addressed similarly. You've got to be able to manage it the right way, in alignment, in a way calmly, emotionally calmly.
What I have found, sorry to interrupt, but what I have found is a lot of people, they put money at the bottom of the list, or it's a low motivator for them, because quite often that comes from their what they have learned as a child. That money may mean being greedy. Money is bad. Money.
Yeah.
And once you learn to reframe that and understand that money has a place in your life, if you don't have money, you can't do a lot of things. Living today means you have to have money. So put it in its proper place, and then you can really start to thrive in your life. Because I've seen business people who put that at the bottom, and then they wonder why their business isn't doing well. It's wonderful to have that need to serve. But if you do that without charging what you're worth, you won't be there for very long to serve the people who need you.
And in a way, others put it too much at the top, and they make some false decisions that way, you know, based on greed.
Yes.
And so I think you're right. It's got to have a healthy balance, and that's really where we're going to. So you mentioned the DNA behavior assessment that you completed, and that's a key part of what you're doing in the, you know, going forward, as part of the engagement programs and culture programs that you've built.
Mm-hmm. So,
just for the audience, Akeela is a facilitator style a person, which means that she likes to lead, get people to see solutions, but also to be collaborative as well, and is empathetic. But I think, Akeela, there's a very strong part of your DNA style that's lurking there as well that really comes through to me as creativity. And innovation. So maybe just tell us a little bit more about that, and, you know, your experience with DNA.
Well, and this is where I like the fact that we have, like, I'm motivated. My top three motivators are searcher, which means I want to make a difference, creator, creativity and innovation, and the spirit, which means that I'm very independent, which is why I'm a business person. And it helps me to understand what I like and what I don't like. And then that's one of the reasons we are doing DNA behavior, because it is an innovative tool. It is an innovative tool that gives people so much more than any of the other strengths, assessments that I have seen. It's not just a strength assessment. Looking through that in detail, I realized that DNA behavior was touching on the cognitive brain and the cognitive brain, what you want to do and how you're going to do it.
Yep.
And that is wonderful.
So in your work, if we took that creativity is a standout strength for you and also a big motivator.
Mm-hmm.
How,
Yes.
from a sort of an execution point of view, if you want to call it that, how do you use it in your work? How have you relied on it, leveraged it to be the success you are?
One of the things I like to do is come up with out-of-the-box solutions.
Yeah.
And that means that I don't take everyone, not all businesses are the same. Everyone has some things that can be used in a certain way. We can have a framework, which is why my program is called a framework, but it can be leveraged and customized to that business's strength and their motivations, their purpose, as have you, and their values. That's very, very important to me.
So sort of piecing that together, and for our audience to understand, with someone like Akeela that or you that's very creative, you're able to design innovative programs, but it's also the customization to each client that's the strength, so that it's not just out of a shrink wrap box, it's something that each person can use and made relevant for them.
Exactly. And like I said, utilizing their strengths, you can make it so much more effective. And it's not just the assessments, but it's my background. I am still a techie at heart. I'm like, for my practitioners and the people who work with me, they're always saying, you're always coming up with a tech that makes a difference. Like, where are you having the time for that? I love it. And again, because that's new. So there's new tech coming out there. So it's being able to pick the best one that you can that'll give you the results that you want, to help you to spend less money, to help you to increase productivity along with your people. Because a lot of people are afraid of AI. I see AI as a partner if used properly.
Yeah.
And that's what businesses have to understand, is that you can't replace a person with AI. What you do is you make AI their partner, free them up to do the things that they can do that is at a higher level. Yeah.
So are you bringing AI to the customers, or the technology to the customer, then helping them integrate it into their business technologically?
Only in some cases, like for my management program, that AI VR platform is to help them train and get used to something. So the program, the management program, is not just integrative, it's immersive as well.
Yeah.
But but more than that, I am part of an organization. It's called Women in Cloud, one of the best organizations I've ever belonged to. And they have there's so many partners or potential partners there that if somebody needed an AI solution, I can help them find the best one and then recommend that solution and the best people to work with it.
Yeah, so help them vet it, piece it together, get it implemented in the business.
Exactly.
But all with the idea of improving the workplace culture, the engagement.
Yes.
Getting the leader to better perform in terms of, seeing the differences across their employees.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, sorry, Akeela, you wanted to say something else?
No, I just wanted to say, and one of those things, the biggest things that employers are going to have to face is that we're in a world of change. That is going to happen day in, day out. It's going to get faster. And if you want to be able to keep up with those changes, you have to have a constant change management plan in place.
Yeah. Which again comes back to understanding the motivations of all the employees.
That's right.
And the team, and they're going to have to be adaptable to it.
That's right. And, people think, people are adaptable or not adaptable. But we can actually teach adaptability now by looking at mindsets and helping people change their mindsets over time. Because if you don't understand who you are or where it came from, that's just the way I am. But once you start understanding that these things, just because it's the way you are, doesn't mean you can change.
Yeah.
And that change wouldn't be good for you. I always come back to that story. I don't know if you've ever heard it, of a little girl who was cooking Christmas dinner with her mom, and her mom take out the ham, cuts both sides, put it in the pan to go into the oven. And she says, "Mom, why did you do that?" And she goes, "You know what? I don't know. My mom always did that." So she called her mom and she says, "Mom, why did you always cut off the sides of the ham?" And the mother says, "I have no idea. My mother always did that." And she called her mother, and her mother said, "Well, it was always too big for the pan I had." That was her reason, but the others just continued doing what they saw, and it was handed down for generations. When we're talking about mindset, when we're talking about who you are, we help you to understand what's going on in there so that you can make your choices about what you want to keep and what you want to throw away.
Yeah. No, that's very important, and certainly in today's environment.
Mm-hmm.
And also, just to be able to do it is a stress relief in itself.
Yes, it is. People are always amazed. "Oh, that's why I do that about money." You can take the girl out of the financial planning, but you can't take financial planning out of the girl. Even now, when I do a course on who you are, I always include a money component.
Because your identity, which is what we're going to talk about now, is so wrapped up with money, and people sometimes define their identity by, I think you were alluding to this before, by how much they've got, in measuring success, or in some ways by what they haven't got, and comparing themselves to someone else. So just moving into identity a little bit around you, Akeela. What do you see your identity as? How do you want people to remember you in the world? How in a way, are you uplifting yourself to strive to the next level?
The way I'd like to be remembered is anybody who's met me or in some way to say she made a positive difference in my life. That's what I'm going for. And even people who haven't met me, who don't know or will ever know that I had a hand in helping them enjoy their work, have a better workplace, things like that. That's what's important to me.
But in your work, that's important from a value set. But in your work, you do something because you've got a unique X factor. There's something about Akeela Davis with that extensive background that you've got that we talked about earlier in the call. That's really resulted in an X factor.
Yeah. Well, I guess the culture renovation specialist would be it, because there's so many cultures out there that need some renovation. And I have created a system to help them do that. I've created a system that would make lives better, that would fit with my values. So yes, I am a culture renovator.
And I think a big part of that is your creativity skills in being able to take, different workplace environments, different employees and leaders, technologies, and blend them together to ensure that there is an engaging culture, if I've understood that correctly.
Yes. I've always been interested in people. I've studied so much psychology, NLP, neuroscience over the years that for me, it's just second nature, is trying to understand people, why they do what they do, and then mirror it back to them.
And in a lot of ways, with the cultural renovation these days, I suppose it's like a house renovation, but it needs to take place quite regularly as well. The organizations need to change at least how they execute on the culture, if not what the culture is, because the world is changing so fast. The employees and where they come from, we were talking before, we started this conversation, generation X to Y to Z is so different. That's got to impact the culture.
Yes. And one of the things I have seen is the culture that the company thinks it has is not the culture it really has. So the stated culture and the living culture are quite different. So then the company has the choice of saying, oh, okay, no, we really want this culture and we will have to make the changes to bring it back. Or you know what, this culture is serving us better now, so we will adapt to that, or somewhere in between.
But in some ways, to get started on all of this, it requires a cultural audit.
Yes, very much so.
And that's part of the cultural renovation, because you've got to figure out what's going to be fixed or not fixed.
Yep, you have to start with a baseline. Yeah, where am I now?
Yeah, it's very important. So, Akeela, have you got any other tip or insight that you would like to offer our listeners in any particular area? Or it can be a book, a podcast, a thought, an inspiration, a lesson, anything you'd like to say.
Good heavens. Well, one of the books I love is your book, DNA Behavior Leadership. That is great. And you have a new one coming out, don't you?
The new one's coming out on financial DNA fairly soon. It's really more of an upgrade of what I wrote some years ago, just because we've evolved the system. And, you know, I'd say the thinking hasn't evolved, but how we deploy it has.
Yeah. And, if I'd known you were going to ask a book, I have a book list, of so many different ones. But probably for a lot of people, there's one called The One Thing. And in this day of so many possibilities, if you read that the one thing that you would need to focus on to move the needle for yourself the most, it is super, super helpful.
It's very interesting you said that, because the book that's on my mind, and that, you know, I'm preaching for myself personally, but also in our business, is one called Essentialism, which I think you would it's probably about exactly the same concept, is drilling down to that one thing that's going to move the needle, add value, be important, and everything else is a distraction.
Exactly. I've read Essentialism and I loved it. The one thing, it seems to resonate more with some people. Yeah. But I loved Essentialism. That was one of my first influencers.
But it's the concept, I think. So that's what you're emphasizing. So, So Akeela, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. It's been very insightful, and I'm also never going to forget economic mutualism either. And as much as you are the culture renovation specialist, you're bringing to the table within that, though, economic mutualism, I think, for an organization, but also for all of us as human beings. So thank you for doing that.
And thank you very much, Hugh. I've enjoyed our conversation too.
Okay, wonderful.